So I have 22 years teaching experience. I've taught all grade levels. I've taught at universities, community colleges. I homeschooled. I was a corporate trainer. Actually, I did a lot of computer training as a corporate trainer. So that's why I love teaching computer stuff. But most recently, I was a middle school math teacher. So most of my products are math, and most of my products are geared for 4th through 7th grade. So that's how I make my boom cards. That's kind of my audience. So I started, 7 years ago, I started my TPT store. And that's when I started creating differentiated math resources. And then 3 years ago, I found Boom and just fell in love with it. I just loved how interactive it was. I loved how creative I could be as a teacher to make really interactive things. And I loved that it was self-correcting, because students all the time would struggle with math. They would do all this work and get it wrong, and then you'd say, well, you have to redo this and this and this. So I loved that it was self-correcting, because the students can really learn from that. So that's a little bit of my background. So we are going to learn how to make a multiple choice boom card. We're going to start in PowerPoint. We're going to save the files and then move over to Boom. Okay, so that's the plan for tonight. So that's what we're going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go right to PowerPoint. Now, like Mary said, you can use PowerPoint if you're comfortable with it. I use PowerPoint because I'm really comfortable. Like I said, I've taught some courses on it. You can use KeyNote if you use a Mac. You might have to tweak some things a little bit differently. And you can also create your Boom cards on the Boom Learning interface. So there's a lot of different options for creating the Boom cards, but I'm just going to show you PowerPoint tonight. So the first thing, I just opened PowerPoint, and this is the basic screen that you're going to get. The first thing we have to do is we have to resize our slide so that it's going to be the same as the Boom card on Boom Learning. All right, so I'm going to go up to the menu here, and I'm going to choose Design. And then I'm going to choose Slide Size, Custom. And instead of widescreen, which is what I'm defaulting to, I'm going to choose the down arrow and choose Custom. And Boom cards are 7 inches wide by 5 inches height. Okay, 5 inches high. So that's the custom 7 by 5. And then I'm just going to go ahead and say, okay, ensure fit. And now I've got a screen that is going to be the same as my Boom card. All right, so once I've resized it, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these text boxes because I don't need them. And I'm just going to start designing. So the first thing I usually do, and you can be so creative with how you design your Boom cards, but usually I create a little rectangle here. I just choose Insert, Shape, Rectangle. And I want this actually to be white. So I'm going to choose Format, Shape, Fill, White. I probably would make this black. And I'm actually going to make this the part where I want students to focus on. I'll put some clip art over here, and I'll add some font up here as well. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and add some text up here because I want to have some directions for the students. So I'm going to choose Insert, Text Box. I'm going to click and drag a box, and we're going to keep this really simple for tonight. I'm just going to say 2 times 3 equals. Like I said, I'm a math teacher, so I'm always doing math Boom cards. And then I can select that. I can choose a font. I can center it. I can change the size. And then I can move it as well. Now, here's the thing. Before you start creating in PowerPoint, I really strongly suggest you plan on paper, because the first set of Boom cards that I made, I went ahead and put the question here, and then I went to put my multiple choice box, and I didn't have any room. So I always plan these out on paper beforehand so I know where I want things to be spatially on the Boom card. So think about that. And I do want to have my multiple choice box down here, so I'm going to leave this empty, or I'm going to leave it open. All right, so I've got that, and then I'm going to just add some clip art. So I'm going to say insert picture, and I'm going to grab something from Melon Heads, and I'm just going to put this on the side here. I'm going to resize it and just have that on the side. Now here's the thing. You just watched me use a custom font, so this is KG, and some clip art as well. This is Melon Heads. When you use clip art or fonts, you need to make sure that they are approved, and Mary mentioned this. So I just want to show you really quickly where you can find that. So let me quickly show you where's the best place to look for that. All right, so I'm switching right now to Boom Learning. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, so when you're on the Boom Learning, you can basically access that list at any time. So Mary mentioned the little hamburger over here. So I'm going to choose that. And then let me move this down here. You can choose Help Center. And then up here, you can choose FAQs and articles. And I have to tell you that this is a fantastic place to go for help. I was constantly visiting all these articles when I first started making my boom cards. So if you have questions, this is a great place to look. But what I want to do now is I want to come down to the creating boom cards and fonts, images, and clip art. Go ahead and choose this first one. It says font and clip art permissions granted or denied list. And when we do that, we see all of the clip artists that have given permission, or the folks that do fonts. So for example, I just mentioned that I did KG. So let's just make sure she's on the list. I'm going to have to put my glasses back on. Sorry, I know there's a glare, but it's easier to see. Okay, so here's KG fonts, so that's great. And then I use Melon Heads, so let's just make sure, and here she is. Okay, so there's Melon Heads. And as Mary mentioned, there's a couple folks down here that have not given permission. Some have limited permission, and then some have some specifications like for drop zones. That's where you're actually moving the clip art. So before you start using all your clip art and your fonts, make sure your clip art and font people have given permission for you to do that, okay? So that's really important that you do that. You don't want to design all your cards and then realize, oh gosh, I can't use that clip art. So just make sure that you check that. All right, I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Okay, so hopefully y'all are seeing my PowerPoint right now. So on PowerPoint, after I've done this, I would just do a couple really quick design things. So I'm going to change the background of this card. I'm going to go up to the menu and choose Design, Format Background. I'm going to use a solid fill. I'm going to choose the paint bucket. I'm going to choose the eyedropper. I'll pick up the purple from her sandals. Oh, actually, it looks like I picked up the black accidentally. Let me go back and get her sandals. And then I'm just going to make that a little bit lighter by clicking on more colors. And then I'm just going to drag the slider up. Okay, so once I have the basic card and everything looks good design-wise, I just say right-click, duplicate, and then what I would do is I would switch out the clip art and put something different. I would, and you know, you can of course resize these however you want to resize them. And then I could also do, I'm going to change this question. So I would want to have a new question on this boom card. And then I would want to change the background as well. So I'm just going to choose Design, Format Background, and I'm going to use the eyedropper to pick up this light blue. All right. So that's how I design my boom cards. And I basically would make 24 to 36 boom cards in PowerPoint. And then I'm just going to do one other slide really quick because I'm going to show you how to switch it out. I'm just going to add a text box here that says this is a different background. Okay. So we've got our slides in PowerPoint set up. And what we need to do now is we need to take these slides and we need to save them as image files. So each slide is going to become its own image file or its own JPEG, or you could also do PNG as well. So in PowerPoint, I'm going to go up to the menu and choose File, Save As. I'm just going to do this to my desktop. I'm going to call it example. The first thing I'm going to do is save the actual PowerPoint presentation. And then I'm going to choose File, Save As. And this time, I'm going to tell PowerPoint, I want you to save each of those slides as a JPEG or an image file. And like I said, you could also do PNG. So I say Save. It says which slides you want to export. I'm going to say all of them. And it tells me each slide in your presentation has been saved as a separate file in the folder. All right. So now I basically have all those image files and I can just use them in Boom. So that's the PowerPoint part, basically just designing and creating your Boom cards. And what we're going to do next is we're actually going to go into Boom. We're going to take those images and upload them to our Boom account. Then we're going to take these images and put them as backgrounds for the Boom cards. All right. So let's do that a little bit at a time so it doesn't seem too overwhelming. So we're going to go back to Zoom. I'm sorry, to Boom. Zoom, Boom. So here we are on the Boom Learning website. And what we're going to do first is in your studio. So as a teacher, you're going to have different accounts, but when you're creating, you want to be in the studio. So I'm in the studio here, and I want to scroll down. There's something called the Asset Manager, and I want to go ahead and click on the Make Decks. When I click there, I just choose this new button here, New Deck. And when I choose New Deck, it opens up a brand new set of Boom cards for me. So this is where all the magic happens. So this is where you're going to do all the interactivity. You're going to do, you know, all these great ways for students to answer. And it's basically going to make them just an incredible, you know, version of just the old paper task cards that we used to work with. So there's going to be so much interactivity here. So what I want to do first is I am going to go back into the studio, and I personally like to use different screens when I do this. This is going to be what I call my image screen here. So what I have to do is I have to go find those image files that I made in PowerPoint, and I need to upload them to my personal Boom Learning account. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to choose this time images. All right, so this is where all of my images live on my Boom account. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and choose upload image right here, and then all you have to do is find where you've put those. I've got my 3 slides here, so I'm going to do click it, hold down the Shift key, select all 3. I'm going to say open, and it tells you your image is processing, and there we go. There are those 3 PowerPoint slides that I saved as JPEGs, and I've now uploaded from my computer to the Boom Learning website. All right, so we've got the images ready to go. I'm going to go back to the design page here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add these all at the same time. So all I have to do is select the card, and I can click right here and it says new cards from images. Now, remember, I'm just going to show you 3 cards today. Keep in mind, you probably will have 20, maybe 30, maybe 40 cards, depending on your age group. You know, if you're designing for younger students, you probably wouldn't have as many. I've had as many as 50, and I think that's pretty much the limit. I know I emailed Mary beforehand and said, how many can I do? So I do have some with 50, but so this upload is going to look a little bit different when you have a lot. So I'm going to say new cards from images. And then it says to me, do you want to use, do you want to do this as PowerPoint user, which is what we want. So I'm going to say yes. And then here I'm back onto my image screen. So all I'm going to do, we're going to save this one for later. All I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 2. Now here's the thing. When Boom uploads the images, sometimes they don't come in the same order as what you wanted them to be. So you have to make sure when you select them in the correct order. So for example, I would click slide 1 first, then I would click slide 2. And then that's going to make sure it puts those in those order. Okay, so I selected slide 1, then slide 2. I'm going to say okay. And now I have those 2 Boom cards. And you'll notice that these are basically background images. I can't do anything on here. If I said, oh, I have a typo, I need to go back and change this 3, I'd have to go back to the PowerPoint, save it again, upload, and replace it. So just kind of keep that in mind. And actually, I'm going to show you really quick how you do replace that. Let me just delete this first card because we don't need this anymore. I'm just going to select it. Hit the delete button. So let's say that we made a mistake accidentally and we want to replace the background on this. We can go right over here on the right hand side where it says background image, and you can select that and choose a different background. So now it says this is a different background. So even after you've put all of your images in the Boom card, you might have to go back and make some corrections, and it's so easy to do that. And I have to be honest with you, a lot of times I have found typos as I'm going through the questions, and I have to go back and just replace a card here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to the one with the math question. But if you need to, you can easily go back and change those just using the same process I used before. All right, so here's where all the fun happens. Here's all our great buttons that we can use to make them interactive. And tonight, we are going to go ahead and choose multiple choice. So to choose one of these, you have to click it and drag it onto your Boom card. So if you just click it once, it doesn't do anything. So you want to click and drag it. And then that brings the answer box over onto your Boom card. Now to move it, you need to get a 4-headed arrow. You see how my mouse has 4 arrows on it? That means I can move it. If you want to resize it, you need to get a double-headed arrow. See how my mouse looks like a double-headed arrow. So watch what your mouse looks like, and that's going to tell you if you're moving or resizing. All right, so when we get this on our Boom card, the first upper left-hand box here, which is outlined in green, is always going to be your correct answer. So you're going to go ahead and type the correct answer there, and then you would type other answers in the red boxes. Now, oops, we would not want that to be 8. So just because it is appearing like this now, that is actually going to move in different locations. So if you have 2 students sitting next to each other and they get this question that comes up, the numbers could be in a different place. And I love that. So it's not going to always look like this. The numbers will move so students basically can't, look onto each other's screens and copy answers. So a couple other great things you can do with the multiple choice. If, let's say, you didn't want 4, let's say that you wanted 2 answers. you can just click on one of the boxes, and when you do that, you should get the file folder. See this little blue, looks like a file folder? You click on that, that selects just that one cell, and then I can go up here and choose duplicate if I wanted to make more than 4, or I can choose delete if I want to make less than 4. So if we wanted to make 2, we would just select this cell and then click on delete there. Okay. Couple other things you can do with the multiple choice. You can go ahead, I would probably resize this before, make it a little bit smaller, but you can change the fonts. So all you have to do is click and drag over whatever's in your box here in your cell. You can change the fonts. Now I've uploaded some custom fonts, which is a little bit more advanced. I do go over that in the course, but you can change to whatever font you want. You can do bold, italic, underline, strike through. You can do subscript, superscript. This is going to change the color of the font, so you can change that. You could also do a background color in the box if you wanted to. So there's a lot of options for how you can customize this little answer box here. So that's nice. I kind of like being able to do that. All right, so let me just put this back to something that we can read. So we're going to make it blue, and we're going to make that, we don't want a background color. Okay, and I would probably do the same thing with this one as well. Now, what I do to save myself time, and again, let's imagine that we have like 24 cards, or let's imagine we have 30 cards, however many cards you're going to be making for your students. If you want the questions to look the same, you can actually copy this box once you get it looking the way you want. So you have the right font, you have the right colors, all of that. And if you've designed your cards the same so that you have space below, you can select the entire answer box by just clicking on it once. And then on my keyboard, I choose Control-C, C for copy. Then I come down to the next card and I choose Control-V as in Victor. And then, of course, I would come here and I would change the answers just to make sure that I have the correct answer. All right. So let's pretend that, you know, we've done a couple cards and we want to make sure that they're looking good. What I would do is I would come up into the preview here. So when you click on the preview, this shows you what your students are going to see. So I always come in here just to make sure everything looks good. I have this funny thing that I always like to answer the incorrect questions first. I don't know, it's some weird OCD thing, but, and then I answer the correct one. So once I go through and make sure that they are correct, then I would continue copying this multiple choice box through the remainder of the cards. So it defaults here to randomize. So you see down here, and I'm in this bottom part of the container. And if you click on it, well, actually it was automatically clicked. That's the default, as Mary said. But if for some reason you didn't want it to randomize, you can just select that and it would not randomize. Okay, so the tricky thing, I'm going to be honest with you, the tricky thing sometimes is making sure you're grabbing the right thing. So you want to make sure that you actually grab the whole box. Okay, so you have everything selected. And then right here, this is just above where we were, background. If you click on the color, you can choose whatever color you want. And I just want to mention that the color codes here are different than they are on PowerPoint. This is what is called the, oh gosh, not the RGB, but the RGB to hex. I knew I could think of it. Okay, this is the hex number. So the RGB is red, green, blue, which is what PowerPoint uses for colors, which is for printing. And the hex code is what online features use. So it's basically for your monitor, for your screen. So you can convert the colors back and forth. But there's lots of great colors that you can choose from. You can use this little slider to choose different colors. You can use this slider here to choose different colors. And as you can see, it changes what the background color is for the container box. So it's kind of up to you. This is another really fun element that you can use to design when you're working on your boom cards.
Sheila, could you drop in for a moment multi-pics? You don't need to add anything, but we had someone asking if you could do this with images instead of text.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop a new card down here. Oops, that is not the right. And so the multi-pics is basically the same thing as the multiple choice, but you have these little image boxes here. So all you would do is double click, you go back to your images screen, and then I actually don't know if I have any clip art in here right now. Most of my images are actually of my slides, but if you had maybe an image, you could go ahead and put that in there. And then you would just do the same with these as well. So it's the same thing as multiple choice, but instead of using text, like words or numbers, you would actually put an image in there. And you would do the same thing. You would just upload the images from your computer to your Boom account, and then you would have access to them for this multi-pic. And then same thing, make sure this is the correct one, and then you would make these incorrect, the red ones. You could change how many you had if you had, you know, more or less than the 4 options.
Okay. You can work in PowerPoint or KeyNote on your Mac. Also, people asked about Google Slides. You can also create in Google Slides, and then you want to export as PowerPoint to do the import, but you can also do creation in Google Slides.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of options. It's basically what I tell people who are getting started is, what are you most comfortable with? What do you use as your standby program or application for designing and creating things? So for me, it's PowerPoint. For someone else, it might be Google Slides. It might be KeyNote, whatever you are comfortable with. And you can also do it on Boom Learning as well. It's super easy to do that. You can use the text button, you can add text here, and you can do basically the same things that I did in PowerPoint, just within the Boom Learning.
Someone wanted to know if she could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and create in the Boom cards and also create task cards to be printed the paper way. What's the fastest, most efficient way to do that?
That is a really good question. So, and I know there's a big discussion about that on Teachers Pay Teachers right now. Should you be making both and having that as one product, or should you have a printable paper and a companion digital one that are separate products? So generally for me, the paper ones that I have created in PowerPoint are different dimensions. And they're different. I usually do 4 of those per page so that teachers can print and cut and laminate those. I also try to make sure that the cards are different, meaning the questions are different. I know it's easy to duplicate the questions and say you could buy either or, but I actually have a lot of people that buy both from my store, so they might buy the printable and the Boom cards, and they're comfortable doing that because the questions are different. Same topic, but the questions are different. So I have not found a way to make them once in PowerPoint or, you know, whatever application you're using, and then have them also be for Boom at the same time. And quite frankly, like I said, I would rewrite the questions myself anyways.
And my perspective from what we've seen of products is that print and Boom are different experiences. You can print out in a layout from the library once you've published either to the store or privately to your library, a layout of your Boom cards, but that's really meant for archival purposes, or if you have a student where you just need a tactile version. But generally, our feeling is that what you want for print looks completely different. It's going to have less color because we don't want to burn through school's toner. And it's going to have a different style, and it requires a different product.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And one of the things that I've been working on myself is transitioning some of my print to Boom, and I'll start making the Boom cards, and I'll say, oh gosh, well, I could have buttons on this, and I can have drag and drop, and I can do so much more with the Boom cards. So even though the topics are the same and the questions are similar, the Boom cards look totally different because, like Mary said, the colors and the interactivity, you just can't have that with the printable task cards. So for me, they look totally different, even though, like I said, they're the same topic, just because I get so excited about, oh, you know, what can I do here? And I could add sound, or there's so many different things that you can do to make them interactive. And so, you know, teachers kind of know what they want. Do they want something to print and go, or do they want something that's going to be on the computer? And my experience is that they're just very different products. So that's what I would say. But size-wise, I'm just not sure how you could translate the 7x5 for the Boom cards onto, say, something that's printable for teachers, because it would be wasting paper, if that makes sense.
Exactly. So someone said you had mentioned that the questions on your Boom cards and task cards are different. Why are the questions different if the topics are the same? I think we covered that. They ask a different cognitive task of the student.
Exactly. Or like I said, in certain, like I'll give you an example. I have a test prep bundle, and it has printable task cards. It has Boom cards. It has worksheets. And it also has PowerPoint games for Jeopardy. So they are review questions for an entire year of math. However, there are teachers that are buying all 4 products because, as we all know, your students learn totally differently. So you want to have different modalities to go and review with your students. If you brought the same product every day, the same printable task cards or the same practice test, they'd be bored. So what I found was, if I had the questions the same in all 4 products, that wouldn't serve teachers well at all, because why would you want the same questions? Students would get bored. So I actually write the questions, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not an ELA teacher, I'm math. It's super, super easy to change math questions because I just usually have to tweak some numbers. But I don't, if they do want to have both products, I want the students to have totally different questions. It just gives them more practice. So, and I do sell a lot of the same topic to the same teacher in both print and Boom. So that's just how I do it. It does take more time for sure to rewrite the questions, but I think it just serves the teachers better. And I know for me personally, I would like to give my students as many ways to see the question as possible. So
we had a question about math equations. We don't yet have an equation editor in Boom, and that's probably some time off because it's a complex task. What our more sophisticated, our authors who are doing kind of high school level math do is they create in an area where they are using math editor, often PowerPoint or someplace like that. And then they create an image. So they either use a screenshot or they save that equation as an image, and then they import the images into Boom. Sheila, do you mind quickly showing the image manager? Yeah, so then they'll just upload their equations here, and then they'll import them as images as answer selection. So one way you can do higher order thinking with complex math is offer them a selection of answers to choose from that are done in the more complicated math language. They're going to have to work those out on paper anyway. That is not a strictly online activity. It's really something that requires paper and online. So then Boom really becomes their immediate feedback tool. They work the problem, then they check their answer by selecting the answers. And if they got it wrong, then they need to go rework it until they can select the right answer.
Exactly. And I'm actually just glancing down here. These are some 6th grade Boom cards I was working on recently. And I did actually use the equation editor. I don't know if it's too small for folks to see, but I use the division symbol. I'm using variables. I use the multiplication symbol. So I do, and I use it for fractions as well. I do use the equation editor in PowerPoint, and I basically make everything, like Mary said, be an image. And then you can just drag text boxes, delete the text from it, and then that's how students would select. But again, like Mary said, you have to have some sort of way for students to work out the problems on the side, and then they're basically just checking their work. So that's how I would do that. But there is an excellent equation editor in PowerPoint, and that's what I use for all of my Boom cards.
We've had several people have a question about how do you get your clip art into a file to choose from in PowerPoint. Do you want to, that's kind of just a general question of, you need to go get your clip art from whatever source, save it into a file that you can find it again with names you can use, and then you'll access that from PowerPoint. I'll have Sheila show how you get to it from PowerPoint, and then from Boom you just upload it to your image file as she demonstrated.
Right. So this is, like I said, this goes back to me teaching computer classes years ago. So you want to just be kind of careful how you store your images. For me, I'll show you how mine look on my computer. I have a basic TPT folder, and within that I have images. So I keep all of my images here, and then if I double click on it, I have it by the different themes. And then within the themes, so I'll show you, this is the one I use a lot. This is just kids. I love to use clip art of kids. If you double click on it, I save it by the person that I bought the clip art from. So I never have any questions. So for example, if I say, oh, I really want to get something from Whimsy Clips, I know that I have that in my Whimsy Clips, and then I might have multiple folders in it. I mentioned Melon Heads. I have a ton of her clip art, and so those are just by the title of the product that I've downloaded from Teachers Pay Teachers. So that's how I do it. I have this image folder in my Teachers Pay Teachers, and then within that I save it by topic, and then by topic I save by the clip artist themselves. Like I said, I've been doing this 7 years, so I have quite a few. I have a lot of clip art, a lot of clip art. So if you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of clip art, you know, maybe find somebody that you really like and buy a couple things and see if you can make it be more versatile. It can get really expensive when you start to get clip art. And then like Mary said, you would just take these, assuming that they're approving, that you would just take those and you can upload those to your image folder on Boom. So one of the questions I get a lot of is why can't I use my images? They're on my computer. Well, you have to take them off your computer and put them on your Boom account to be able to use them. So even if you had like a little clip art of like an apple or something like that, you would need to upload that clip art.
Could we take a moment and look at details? Some people had questions about how to give attribution.
Yeah, so that's super important. So usually when I am working, I will have a little sheet of paper next to me, trying to find the right set of Boom cards. I will have a little sheet of paper next to me, and I just, or it's actually on the back of my planning sometimes. I jot down as I'm working, you know, who I'm using, what fonts, you know, what clip artists, things like that, and then I'll come back. So once you finish the boom cards, and this is a set that I actually created earlier, if you click on the details here and you click on about, down here you have acknowledgements. So in these cards, I used KG fonts and I used melon heads. So I just go ahead and acknowledge them there. You can also click on browse right here and you can search on them. Yeah, so here's like KG fonts. So you could just say add acknowledgement there also. If they don't have it like KG does here, then you can just go ahead and add it here. But yes, just like teachers pay teachers, when you have a printable, you have to acknowledge if you've used somebody's clip art or fonts. And this is where you do it down here in the acknowledgements. Mary, do you want me to go through the rest of the details here?
Yes, please, particularly randomize.
Okay, so once you finish the cards, you're going to go ahead and there's all these 4 tabs up here. So these are pretty easy. The grades tabs, the keywords, the price. Now, boom cards are priced in points. 100 points is $1. So these cards on TPT are $2.50, but the price is actually 250 points in Boom Learning. Randomizing cards, so I do differentiated cards where they start with easy, they get more difficult, and then they get to the most challenging. So I do not randomize my cards because I want them to go in this order where they get progressively more difficult. However, you can choose randomizing cards, and then if you do that, you can say, don't shuffle the cards. Do not randomize the first X cards, or N cards. So for example, maybe you have the first 3 cards that give directions to students. It says, you know, here's a definition, here's an explanation, here's an example. You would not want that to randomize. You want that to stay as card 1, 2, and 3. So they read that, then they go on to the rest of the boom cards afterwards. So you would say here, don't shuffle in, and then you would say 3 cards if you had 3 instruction cards like that. And then cards per play, you can designate what that is. If you don't choose randomize, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, if you do not choose randomize, it automatically does all the cards.
If you do not choose randomize, it plays all the cards in order. So then that's the notion of if you need to do a lesson where it needs to be in order.
Right, right. And so like I said, that's what I do because I do the differentiated. But if they, and if you don't choose randomize, that's not even an option. So, and then
yeah, we'll cover flow magic in another webinar. That's one all on its own. That's for the people who want to get into conditional logic.
Yeah, so those are super, super fun to learn how to do. But it's just basically another way of having students go through in a different order that you control as the creator of the boom card. So that's another option as well. So you just have to think about that when you're setting your cards up. Do I want to randomize? Do I want to have instructional cards beforehand? You know, how many cards do I want to play? Things like that. So that's the first main screen, the grades. So those are the basic ones. And then you would actually have a publish button here, but these are published. So I only have the unpublished. And then subjects, you can choose what your subject is. You can decide whether you want to have an on-screen keyboard. I usually choose no, just because I do numbers, but you could select any of these different languages. You can choose a math one, or you could choose none. And then for the about, you can have a description, and this is in the listing. And actually for me, these are very similar to the descriptions that I have on my TPT store. So explain what the cards are like, explain what the students are going to need to do. And if they are Common Core aligned or aligned to state standards, go ahead and list that. We talked about here the acknowledgements.
Oh, one moment, Sheila.
Oh, go ahead.
Could you go back to about for a moment? We had a question, where do you put your TPT website? On TPT, you often put it on the bottom of the page. So you need to be aware that everything on a boom card is student facing. There should never be anything on a card that could constitute advertising. There are strict rules around digital delivery of instruction. Anything like your website should only be in the teacher facing elements. About is teacher facing. So you can put it here in your about, but it should not be on a boom card. And if we catch it, we'll tell you you have to go fix it. So save yourself some trouble. You also, if you really want to provide a lot of additional teacher facing stuff, we have a feature called files. So you can create a PDF with instructions for the teacher, which can have all sorts of links in it and additional materials. And then you create a bundle with your boom deck. So there'll be the teacher facing instruction piece and then the boom deck for the students.
Right. That sounds perfect. So do you want me to discuss this briefly, the listing on TPT?
Yes, very briefly. We'll cover that in more detail in a different one.
Okay. So usually this is not checked. So you just go ahead and check list in other marketplaces in TPT. And Boom gives you two different links. One is a preview link, which will allow anyone to look at the first 4 cards in your deck, and they can actually answer the questions and make it interactive. Okay, so that is the preview URL. I'll show you real quick. This product, if you click on View Preview, and if you click right here, click to preview these Boom cards, I have used the preview, the green link, and then it shows them a full-size preview, and then they actually get a chance to practice and see if these are the cards that they want to get. So that is the preview one, okay? And I love how it's in green, because you need to make sure that you use the correct links here, all right? And all I did was in PowerPoint, I just embedded this link into that blue box. So now a TPT teacher just has to click on that and it goes right to the Boom Learning website and shows everybody what the preview is. This is the URL you want to use to actually kind of cash in the Boom card. So what teachers are buying on TPT is actually a PDF, okay? Because the Boom cards live on Boom Learning. They don't live on the TPT website. So they purchase a PDF from you, and then you embed this link here, and then when they click on that, it will allow them to then get those cards and put them into their library. Okay, so those are the two most important, and I won't talk about this third one right now, because if you need that, you would be talking to Mary about it. But so the green one is the preview link, and then this red one, and all you have to do is select it, right-click, copy, and you've copied that link. So that's what teachers are actually buying from you, is they're buying the link to the Boom cards that live on Boom Learning. So do you want me to show them that on that product, what that looks like?
The one I think people have questions about is how do you do your thumbnail? I think that's kind of the key one we haven't answered. That image should be 300 by 300 ideally. And if you could talk about where you make yours and how you make them.
Okay, sure. So what I do, let's see, let me go back to PowerPoint. So one of the things that I do, and I'll try to, let me see if I can pull up one I just finished working on. You can see I have all these square covers here. So I just was working on these expression ones. So these are the Boom cards that I actually created for this product. So I have some explanations, definitions, there's the Boom cards. These are actually 40 Boom cards. Then what I do to show people that they're interactive is I actually do some screenshots of the interactive cards. So for me, it's on my keyboard and I'm using a PC, it's Control Alt Print Screen. I capture, some people call it screen capture. I capture an interactive boom card and then I paste it onto a new slide. So I have all of these at the end of each of my files. I can show what it looks like to be interactive. And then I have two different covers that I create. So for my TPT listing, I make sure that I say boom cards. I make sure I say digital task cards. I either use a laptop or some sort of, some sort of device so people know that they're online. And then for the boom cards, it's obvious that they are because everything on boom is. So on the boom cards, I do them a little bit differently, and this is what the cover would look like here. So I just have the title, I have one of the clip arts, and again, these are just the images that I screen saved from Boom Learning. I pasted into PowerPoint, and then I just did the file save as, and I was able to create JPEGs for those. So hopefully, does that answer the question, how I create the covers?
It does. And let's go back to details one last time. We have lots of people asking how to publish only to their own classrooms. We just need to show them that private button next to publish to the store. There we go.
So details, and then
There we are.
Here when you choose about, you would choose private publish here. And then that would be just for your students, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that sends it only to your library. It does not publish it to the store. For anything you're creating only for your own use that you have no desire to share with the world, you'd use private.
I know, so there's no save feature. So when I first started working, I was like, how do I save this? How do I save this? But it automatically saves. So if you do need to go in, let's say that I had the wrong answer here, and I went back and I changed it, it's automatically updated. So if you're changing anything within the Boom interface, it automatically updates all of the cards. So you don't have to go and do a refresh. You don't have to notify people that you've changed something. I love that feature. I love that I don't have to save. It just automatically does it for me all the time. It's such a huge time saver. And it's peace of mind as well. I love that.
So I think that's all we're going to cover for new content today. I'm going to let Sheila to take a moment to talk about her course that is available for those of you who want to do more in-depth with her. And then we will call it a day. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that sounds great. So if you want to take a look at the course, you can just go to Teachers Pay Teachers. And my store is my name, so it's Sheila Cantonwine. And I keep it right here in my featured items. So I actually created an initial course back in May of last year. And at the end of the course, I said to folks, hey, if you want to learn something else, let me know. I'll add it to a different course. We'll do advanced topics. So I was really happy that a lot of people emailed me and said, can you teach me sound? Can you teach me, drop zones? Can you teach me custom fonts? And so I was able to add the second course and then bundle them together. So this is the course that I would recommend, and it gives all the details about what's in it. There's feedback, so I encourage you to read that. But I can't say enough about Boom cards. The conversion rate for me is very high on Teachers Pay Teachers. Students love them. I get reports all the time that they are begging their teachers for more Boom cards. And I know that teachers love them as well because they're so interactive and self-correcting. So it's just a fantastic, fantastic thing to have in your classroom.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Sheila. This was wonderful. Have a lovely afternoon, evening.